Hello, my late-night friends. Today, I bring you a story that may forever change the way you see the night. Behind seemingly ordinary stories lie secrets that few have dared reveal. Secrets that speak of strange encounters, suffocating pursuits, and the feeling that someone, silently, is watching your every step. What seemed like mere coincidence turned into something much more disturbing. Get ready, because after hearing this story, you may never walk the streets alone the same way again. Story 1: The Man at the Entrance. Russia in the 2000s was different. I was still a child, living with my family in one of those cramped cement apartments with thin, barely soundproof walls. Every neighbor knew every other, and privacy was almost an illusion. Our front door was double, a heavy metal one, and, just behind it, a flimsy wooden one. At first glance, nothing seemed threatening, but that night, something changed everything. It was dawn. I had to get up to go to the bathroom, and as always, I couldn't turn on the light. Every step in the dark hallway made my heart beat faster, and the cold of the floor beneath my bare feet seemed to penetrate my bones. Every shadow seemed to move. The air was still, heavy. I heard the distant sound of wind passing through the cracks in the window, the ticking of the clock in the living room, and the soft snoring of my parents sleeping. When I reached the end of the hallway, near the entrance, a silhouette froze me. A tall man, dressed entirely in black, stood there, watching me. His eyes were impossible to see, but I felt his attention like a physical force pressing down on me. My body froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but my feet wouldn't move. He didn't say a word, didn't breathe audibly, just existed there, a strange, menacing presence. My first step was backward, my heart pounding so hard it seemed to echo in the hallway. Then I ran toward the living room, waking my father. He looked down the hallway, his eyes widening in surprise, and without hesitation, he went to the man. He said something firmly, "What are you doing here?" and pushed him outside. Curiously, the man didn't resist. He simply left, silently, disappearing into the cold night. The doors were locked, security restored, but the feeling remained. Who was that man? What did he want? He didn't look like a common thief. He didn't try to steal anything. He didn't say anything. He just watched me, silently, as if measuring something within me. The experience left a lasting mark. Every shadow seemed denser, every footstep in the dark heavier. And to this day, I remember the cold of that night, the crushing silence of the hallway, and the sense of complete vulnerability I felt before that stranger. Story 2: The Stranger on the DC Subway. Washington, D.C., is a bustling city, full of life, but also full of strangers. From an early age, I learned to observe every detail, every look, every gesture, every movement in my surroundings. I'm small and I've always looked 16, so I've always been an easy target for those seeking vulnerability. That's why I carry a fixed-edge hunting knife with me, strategically hidden, in my boot, at my waist, or on my arm. It's not comfortable, but it provides a sense of security that, in that city, is essential. It was a rainy summer night. The rain was falling hard, making my skin stick under my coat, and the sound of the water on the asphalt and the subway roof created a symphony that mixed tension and discomfort. I was walking home, my large, baggy coat partially hiding me, and the knife was in my bag, ready to go if needed. I got on the subway, as I always did. Usually, I listen to music or read something, but my eyes never leave the car. Something about that night caught my attention immediately. A strange man, thin, with greasy, dark hair, a tight purple shirt, and tight pants, sat across the aisle, staring at me. He spoke quietly into his phone, but also fiddled with a second cell phone on his lap. My intuition kicked in. Something about him wasn't right. I understood enough of several languages to realize he was speaking in Italian, describing a small, brown-haired girl wearing a jacket, me. He repeated the word sola, which means alone. Every time he looked in my direction, a chill ran down my spine. The station approached. My heart was pounding so hard it sounded audible. I tried to slip out discreetly, blending into the crowd, but he managed to exit the car behind me. Every step he took made me more desperate. I needed to get to a friend's house, a safe place, but I knew every second counted. I started running, trying not to attract attention. My heart was racing, my breath shallow, each beat echoing on the wet streets. He reached me and grabbed me around the waist. Desperation overcame me. In a surge of survival, I drew my knife and attacked wherever I could. Every movement was instinctive, every blow an attempt to break free. I managed to break free and run, nearly getting hit by a car. Finally, I reached my friend's apartment, locking the door behind me. I washed away the blood and tried to catch my breath, but I still felt every second of that struggle etched into my skin and mind. What scares me most to this day isn't the wound or the attack itself, but the knowledge of how vulnerable I was, being stalked by someone who clearly had malicious intent. I survived thanks to my intuition, my reflexes, and the courage I didn't even know I possessed. That night taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Always pay attention to the signs, trust your instincts, and never underestimate danger, even in places that seem familiar or safe. Story 3, Randy the Obsessive. When I was 15, my life was already unstable. My father moved to a friend's house almost 2 hours away, leaving my mother and me alone, without a car and without many options. We lost our jobs and stability, and ended up living in a motel in a different city than the one I was studying at. Despite this, I still attended my old school, taking public transportation daily that kept me connected to the routine I knew. It was in this environment that I met Randy. At first, he seemed like just a friendly classmate. We talked, laughed, and it seemed like he genuinely cared. But over time, Randy began to cross subtle boundaries. Comments about my appearance, unsolicited gestures of closeness, attempts to touch my arm or shoulder, he constantly tested my boundaries. I was pregnant with my ex-boyfriend's child and made it clear that I wanted nothing more than friendship, but Randy seemed incapable of respecting that. The breaking point came one rainy day. We were in my room. I was lying in bed, experiencing abdominal pain. I was vulnerable, tired, and suddenly Randy approached, pressing his body against mine, trying to hug me, envelop me. My heart raced and every fiber of my being screamed run. I begged him to leave, I pushed, but he wouldn't move away. Suddenly, he drew a knife. The blade reflected the dim light of the room, and the coldness of the metal froze me with terror. He began screaming about how he wanted to be with me, about how no one else deserved to have me if he couldn't. His every word was filled with obsession, every gesture conveyed delirium. I was paralyzed, but I knew I had to act. I grabbed what I had at hand, fighting with desperate strength. He attacked me with the knife, and I dodged, striking with whatever I could. Every second felt like an eternity, every breath, a risk. My body trembled, but my mind focused only on survival. He advanced, menacing, each step closer, each gaze more intense. It was then that the police arrived, alerted by a neighbor who heard my screams. 7 officers had to restrain him, using tasers multiple times. Randy was taken away, but because he was a minor, he received only 5 years probation and 6 months of community service. I was physically injured, but I survived. A huge bruise covered my back, and the knife left a superficial cut, but the real scar was psychological. The feeling of helplessness, of being in the hands of someone utterly obsessed and irrational, stayed with me for a long time. This experience taught me painful lessons. Always be extremely wary of people who seem too kind, trust your instincts, and never underestimate the danger that can lurk in someone you consider a friend. I survived, but the fear of that day still lives within me. Story 4: The Man on the School Road. It happened in 2005, when I was 14 or 15 years old. I was delivering newspapers, and part of my route included a narrow, little-used path that passed by a local school. It was quicker, but poorly lit, and in the fall or winter, it would get completely dark around 4 in the afternoon. At first, nothing seemed wrong. I ran along the path, feeling the cold wind on my face, the smell of rain wetting the asphalt, and the sound of my own footsteps echoing between the school walls. But then, I began to notice a presence. A man appeared at the entrance to the path. Tall, thin, bald, with deep, dark eyes. He said nothing, just watched. Days passed, and he was always there. Pacing the street, always in the same way, waiting for a moment to follow me. Every time I looked back, there he was. Every shadow seemed to come alive with his presence. Fear grew inside me, silent, constant. One day, he began to follow me. I ran as fast as I could, every muscle tense, my heart racing. I even knocked on a neighbor's door in desperation, asking for help. My father went to his house and, seeing the seriousness of the situation, confronted him. The man fled as soon as he saw my father arriving. I never had to cross paths with that man again. But the experience left a deep mark, the feeling of being watched, the vulnerability, the silent fear that grows when we realize someone is constantly watching us. Every shadow along the way seemed denser afterward, every step in the dark heavier. This story taught me that even seemingly safe routes can hide threats, and that survival instinct is always our greatest weapon. And so ends another night of dark tales. But if you think the danger was limited to these stories, you're mistaken. The silence of dawn still holds many secrets. Secrets that prefer to remain hidden, in the shadows, lurking, waiting only for the right moment to reveal themselves. Thank you for staying with me this far. But be careful, when you turn out the lights, you might realize you're not as alone as you think. Until next time, my friends of the early morning. If you dare to return.